I'm a modern man. I don't spend my time with my loved ones or doing fulfilling hobbies. I look at my phone. I look at social media on my phone until my brain gives me the good chemicals. Naturally, a lot of the discord that I see online relates to the rights of animals because the algorithm knows that I'm a soy boy cuck. But there are some arguments that vegans deploy that I don't think really work. So it's time to destroy these bleeding heart animal lovers with facts and logic. More importantly though, I'm going to suggest some alternatives that I think are more effective. Drinking milk from other species is kind of weird, and vegans don't really like to let anyone forget that. Oftentimes, you'll see people note that we're the only species to engage in this kind of behavior, and my counter-argument is this. So what? An action is not bad simply because we're the only species that does it. We're also the only species that wears clothes, practices modern medicine, and does whatever this is. It doesn't make these things unethical, even if they are weird and unsettling. It's much more effective to focus on the harm that the dairy industry inflicts on both animals and the environment. Firstly, all dairy cows are slaughtered anyway, so there's really no reason to separate dairy from meat. But it also requires the continued sexual exploitation of cows and the separation of mothers from their children. These are much more compelling reasons to skip the milk in our coffee than just, you're weird. The appeal to nature is a favourite of people who haven't really thought about animal ethics yet. In fact, it was a favourite of mine for years. Sometimes when someone tries to defend our exploitation of animals by describing it as natural, an animal rights advocate will then start arguing that our current use of animals is in fact not natural. We artificially inseminate, we keep animals in dark, cramped spaces, we cut off body parts from children. This isn't exactly the Garden of Eden. Still, I don't think this is a perfect line of reasoning. It still leaves room for animal exploitation that is natural, like hunting or maybe even ethical farming. A more useful counterpoint to use is simply pointing out that something being natural is irrelevant anyway. Otherwise, we'd be okay with human-on-human violence and rampant disease spread. I don't think it would hold up in court if I was like, Your Honor, it was perfectly natural for me to cave in my roommate's head with a rock. Haven't you seen 2001? Like the previous example, this usually comes in the form of a counter-argument. People will often call veganism a white ideology. We'll then rush to prove that actually, veganism has existed among indigenous people long before it was taken seriously by the West. Both sides of this example are committing something called a genetic fallacy. The genetic fallacy occurs when someone thinks the validity of an idea is determined by its origin. In this case, white bad, indigenous good. But obviously, this is irrational. An idea doesn't become better or worse based on who thought of it or who endorses it. If the Nazis were the first people to endorse exercise, that wouldn't make exercise bad. We should assess ideas based on their merits and demerits, not based on who thought of what and when. Soy is the devil. It's destroying the Amazon rainforest along with almonds, avocados, and hemp, or whatever it is those damn hippies use. When faced with this kind of argument, sometimes vegans will say, aha, but actually, most soy is consumed by non-vegans.
Evan Bourne's going for airborne, ladies and gentlemen! You gotta be kidding me! Oh, did he do it? Did he get it? Oh my God!
But obviously this would be the case. Basically, everyone is non-vegan. Most petrol is also consumed by non-vegans. This doesn't mean that non-veganism necessarily entails increased petrol consumption. It's more of a comment on how woefully outnumbered we are. It's better to challenge the idea that veganism is worse for the environment or requires more land use. We know that this is false, and we know that the vast majority of soy is grown for animal feed. If the non-vegan wants to limit their soy consumption, they'd still be vegan. If they want their diet to use as little space as possible, they'd stop eating animal products. This is actually a good argument in favor of transitioning to a plant-based food system. Governments around the world have to subsidize the meat industry because producing meat is very resource intensive. We have to waste huge amounts of energy putting plant calories into animals only for them to use those calories on organ function and body heat. A tiny fraction of the calories that animals eat actually go towards building muscle and fat, so animal farming is incredibly inefficient and therefore very expensive. The only reason that meat is reasonably priced is because the taxpayer has already paid for a lot of it before it's even reached the shelf. Where this argument doesn't work, though, is when someone's claiming that veganism is too expensive for them. The fact that meat is heavily subsidized doesn't really mean much for that individual and their personal food budget. What matters to them is what's affordable at the point of purchase. If vegan products are more expensive at the point of purchase, it really would be hard for a lot of people to be vegan, regardless of what's subsidized or not. Good news is, a whole foods plant-based diet isn't more expensive. In fact, it's cheaper. The reason why people think veganism is expensive is because they associate it with Beyond Burgers and vegan cheese, but these aren't necessary to be healthy on a vegan diet. Whole food options like lentils, chickpeas, beans, pasta and rice are some of the cheapest items in the supermarket, so you don't have to break the bank in order to stop exploiting animals. Those are just a few objections I have to common vegan arguments, and frankly I'm not sure they'll ever recover. I hope this video proves useful for anyone who wants to stand up for animals, and I'll probably make another one at some point, so I'll see you then.